also participated in a gun buyback program. We found out that it was coming, and a week or so in advance, what I did was I went around to all the gun dealers in the area to warn them it was coming, saying, geez, you may want to have somebody there to purchase the guns to keep them from being brought back in. So that was one of the things that Lou was asking, some of the things that we did. That was just in the last year, one of the things that we accomplished. Our next speaker is coming back up. We're still under the title of Libertarian Solutions. And the solution that he came up with is nullification. Person coming back up to talk with us again is the former chair of Montgomery County, former candidate for state representative here in the county, and also the co-founder of WeWon'tFly.com, Jim Babb. You're welcome, sir.
Okay, let's see if this mic will hold out. I'm going to be pretty brief. I want to talk about two different operations that we've been engaged in here, and this is something that anybody can do anywhere. One is jury nullification, and this involves printing out some pamphlets from FIJA.org, going to a courthouse, and passing them out. That's really all there is to it. And it's an amazing activity because very little investment is required. You don't even need a big group, although I recommend going, in at least a pair. But what you're doing is informing potential jurors, really the general public, about their right, if they're selected for jury duty, to judge not just the facts of a case, but the law itself. This is a centuries-old tradition. It was used by William Penn. It was used to nullify convictions for fugitive slave laws. So it has an enormous tradition. It was used to end alcohol prohibition. They could not get juries to convict people for selling booze. So they eventually had to stop trying. Today, the real main focus of jury nullification is the immoral war on drugs. This is something that is obviously affecting millions and millions of people. The laws are absolutely ridiculous. The public is overwhelmingly opposed to them, but somehow people still go in there for jury duty and say, well, the judge told me if he smoked a joint, I have to say guilty. That's bullshit. Okay? Yeah. That's total bullshit. So the idea of informing potential jurors about this can have an enormous effect. It can actually send a guy home instead of him going to jail for a victimless crime. One of our most successful outcomes was Ed Forshen's recent trials in New Jersey. He was caught with a pound of marijuana in his trunk in New Jersey. So they charged him with simple possession and also with intent to distribute. Back in May of last year, he faced his trial. He was found guilty of simple possession. But what we did, I, myself, and some other people, we went out and stood in the jury parking lot. We passed out flyers from FIJA, just to inform the general public about what their rights are. He did get convicted of simple possession, but got a hung jury on distribution, which was the real serious charge. So all it takes is one juror. I don't even know if I'm going to use this. You know what? Let's just turn it off. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. All right. It takes just one juror to say not guilty to send that person home. Now, if it's a hung jury, they may retry. And in Ed's case in Burlington County, New Jersey, they did retry. They said, okay, you know what? Come on back. So he went back, and last October, he had his second trial for distribution. And he said, yeah, I had a pound of weed, but the law is wrong. I'm not wrong. In fact, I've been eating pot-laced brownies this whole trial. Find me not guilty. It's your duty as a juror to judge the law, not just the facts of the case. He was found not guilty. Not just another hung jury, but 12 jurors said, you know what? We don't need to convict him for that. So that was a very important case. We've seen other cases where this has had a monumental impact. Bob Constantine in New Hampshire a couple years ago made an impassioned jury nullification defense in New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, you're allowed to be open about jury nullification. In New Jersey, they still consider it taboo, despite the fact that it's actually documented in the New Jersey Constitution that it is the right of a juror to judge the law. But this is a growing strategy, and it's got a track record. It's getting people off the hook. It's a way for a single individual to say, you know what, I'm going to print up 50 flyers, and I'm going to walk down to the courthouse, and you can have an immediate impact. Okay? It's not hypothetical. It's not some grandiose educational scheme. You're not calling a politician and begging to change the law. You're not hoping for leniency. You're not saying, ouch, quit it, ouch, quit it, ouch, quit it. You're taking an action and you're nullifying a bad law. So that's jury nullification. Go to fija.org. Check it out. Anybody can do it. Highly recommend that as an activity. Is there any questions about jury nullification?
What does FIJA stand for?
Fully Informed Jury Association.
And who is that?
Some awesome folks. I believe they're based in Montana. Originally founded by members of the Libertarian Party back in the 70s, I believe. They do amazing work, but mainly they're just offering pamphlets for people to print out and hand out, and they continually raise awareness. This has been going on for decades, but it's building and it's building, and I genuinely believe this is our final peaceful opportunity to oppose tyrannical laws. Steve?
Speaking of tyrannical laws, can you describe what the judge's reaction when the original hung jury was?
Well, he was not pleased at all. The judge, in fact, described our pamphleting operation as an attempt to scuttle the judicial process. Okay? Now, anybody familiar with the judicial process says, you know what, scuttle that shit. Okay? That shit deserves to be scuttled. It's outrageous. It has nothing to do with justice. It's a judicial process where they expect people to leap onto this conveyor belt and ride themselves into jail. So the fact that somebody like Ed would say, no. In fact, I'm going for a nullification defense, whether you like it or not. He was forbidden to even just to mention this in court. But he was able to actually transcribe a bit of the Pennsylvania Constitution onto a board and left it in front of the jury where this is described. But he was threatened with a contempt of court for even mentioning this. So some states it's harder than others, but it's really easy to stand out in that parking lot, reach every potential juror, even if they're not on the case that day, they're going to be on a case another day. Virtually anybody can be on a jury. Everybody needs to know about this opportunity to get somebody off the hook.
That's right.
Any other questions about jury nullification?
So, not everybody wants to do flyers. Do you think there's something wrong with educating about the jury vote, which is actually a vote, and why it matters, rather than just taking the flyer approach or the agitational approach?
Say that again?
Do you think there's something wrong with taking an educational approach, rather than taking an agitational approach with flyers and direct action? Because the jury vote is just that. It's the most powerful vote.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with the Fully Informed Jury Association, I'm just preaching to the choir. So, do you think that's wrong to educate in that capacity, rather than always agitate?
No, I mean, we should. It's something that I talk about all the time, with friends and family. How often do you hear somebody's like, "Oh, I got jury duty," right? The next thing out of their mouth is, "And this is how I'm getting out of it."
Yep.
Okay, every time, and I understand nobody wants to miss work, nobody wants to be coerced into this racket. But I think once people understand that the role that they have, okay, and I think it also, you have to understand, like, if you've witnessed a few trials, you understand what a sham the whole thing is. I mean, it is this racket. There's no justice in there. The role of the juror is crucial. It's not like there's going to be some impartial, wonderful thing that's going to say, oh, this is a nice person. He never hurt anybody. Please send him home. That doesn't happen. Okay, we need to let people understand that this is a the courtroom is a horrible, nasty place where justice virtually never occurs. So if you can miss a couple days of work and go in there and get one guy off the hook, man, I mean, to me that makes months and months, days after days after days of pamphleting pay off, because that's sending a guy home to his family that could go to jail otherwise. I can't think of anything more rewarding for libertarian activism.
Yeah.
Any other questions about jury nullification? All right, one of the other activities I wanted to describe was another form of nullification, and it was suspicionless checkpoint nullification. Okay, and these happen all the time. They call them DUI checkpoints. You know, they act like, oh, this is for public safety. We want to find dangerous drivers and take them off the street. Sounds, you know, on the surface sounds perfectly reasonable until you scratch beneath the surface. You find out what they're really doing is just hassling everybody, occasionally finding somebody who's really impaired, but 99 out of 100 times they're hassling, you know, just normal people. People stumble into these checkpoints and they say, well, you know, have you been drinking? Well, I've been, you know, I'm here with my wife. I've got a tie on. Of course, I had a glass of wine, but I'm not impaired. I'll happily take your test, sir. Next thing you know, they're in handcuffs or going to jail. Okay? Yep. They cooperate voluntarily because they think, well, I'm not impaired. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not a danger to anybody. And I have respect for police. Of course, I'm going to cooperate fully, sir. They're in cuffs going, what the hell happened? What the hell happened? These checkpoints are nothing but just drag nets that are hurting innocent people and infringing on the inherent rights of individuals to travel without harassment. So we had the benefit in Montgomery County of getting wind of some of these checkpoints when they were coming up, and we said, you know what, let's go out there with some signs. We spent $50 on reflective tape. This is not our idea. I've seen it done online. You just hold out there with a sign, checkpoint ahead.
Is that legal?
Yes, it is.
Nice.
Not that that really matters, but it is. So anyway, you stand out there in front, and anybody can do this. The investment's minimal. You got to know, you know, read the paper, find out when these things are. A lot of times they tell you in advance. If you catch wind of one of these things in advance, jump on it. Get out there with the sign that says, checkpoint ahead, turn now. So we go out there, we had about 8 people. People are seeing our signs, they're like, they're swerving, you know, they're getting out, they're like, we're like, another save, another save, another save. I mean, tons of people were saved by this operation.
Did you have a guy on the other end of the U-turn with a bucket that says tips on it?
Unfortunately not, although a woman did come back and be like, look, here's $20. Get some coffee. God bless you. You know. Steve?
I love it. How far back do you usually stand, or is there anything preferred, or how far back do you stand with the sign just to warn people? A block or two?
Well, you know, I'd say you'd want to keep some distance because you want to give them a chance to make a controlled turn.
Yeah.
You know, we were, you know, at the next biggest intersection away. At some point, we were split up on either sides of it when they went to both sides. But, you know, one thing to keep in mind is, you know, they adapt too. They went for like 3 hours without an arrest, okay, in this place. And this was not a small operation. This was a joint. They had state troopers, county sheriffs, the local police, the fire department. They took a whole Best Buy parking lot, set up this massive donut station about the size of this room. They had... I mean, this was an enormous operation just to run this. It must have been 50 cops involved in this thing, okay? And just in case anybody's thinking like, well, gosh, you know, what, do you want drunk drivers? How can you be so mean? You know, my so-and-so was hurt by a drunk driver. It's been proven over and over again that if you really want to cut down on drunk drivers, letting these 50 cops just do normal patrolling, look for actual people that are dangerous, it's going to be far more effective than putting everybody in one place at the donut station and just harassing the hell out of everybody. So not only were we trying to help innocent people, but we also want to just make a point. Like, look, seriously? Like, somebody came to us who was yelling at us like, how could you be so mean? You know, we're against drunk driving. Well, you know what? Go tell them to go out and patrol or do something. Don't tell us. We're not the ones that put 50 cops in the middle of the street doing nothing productive. So, and they did start to adapt. They started trying to bird dog us. They were like, watch us, and they'd see a car would turn off, and they would chase after him. So we would move to the next street up. We would try to spread out.
They're not allowed to chase people down that make a legal turn away from a DUI checkpoint.
What do you mean allowed?
I understand.
That's just what they're going to do, okay? So, they make arrests. They're not allowed to burn down a building with you inside either, but they're going to do whatever they
tried
want to
today.
Yeah. They try in California. I got a question, I guess. Do you think that most police do this, participate in checkpoints out of the goodness of their heart, thinking that they are helping people in their community, or do you think they have an ulterior motive?
Well, you should have seen the donut spread. Okay, that's a strong motivation. I think most people are there to just follow orders. They probably think that they're remotely helping, but this is really about grant money and spending money and keeping the whole machine going and keeping everybody busy and justifying their own existence. Whether they realize that consciously or not, I don't know, but that's really all it comes down to. Steve?
How many of our tax dollars do you think were spent on this particular charge?
Well, they're not our tax dollars. Once they steal them, they're their tax dollars. Okay, so, but needless to say, what's the salary of dozens, the expense of dozens of cars, scores of cops, hundreds, thousands of donuts going down. The expense, I can't even calculate what the expense would be. So what I do know, what's the expense of 10 people going to jail that have no business being there? To me, that's the real expense that I want to avoid. That's irreplaceable. And the fact that we could actually participate in an operation that got people home that night instead of going to jail, incredibly rewarding. So I think that's definitely something that people can easily replicate. Any other questions about that? All right, well, those are just two of the things I wanted to highlight. Anything else that I should cover while I'm up here? I think that's it. I'll turn it back over to Ken. We've got some more solutions coming up.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim.